Now that Stranger Things has officially come to the end of its 10-year run, I wanted to have a quick look back on the show and delve deeper into what it's meant to me these last 10 years, and how the ending presented to us perfectly wraps up such a fantastic show. This isn't necessarily going to be a review of the final episode or season 5 as a whole, but more of a way for me to navigate my emotions and my feelings, now that such a big part of my childhood, and well, my life in general, reaches its closing chapter. So with that, this, with slight spoilers, is what Stranger Things means to me. When season 1 released way back in 2016, Netflix was still very new to Australia, at least in its current form. And I, but a 13-year-old, had heard about this show and was desperate to find a way to watch it. I couldn't afford a Netflix subscription, so I frankly just didn't have a way to watch it. I remember begging my friends to let me use their account when that was still a thing, and I'm pretty sure that's how I actually ended up watching it. Looking back on how desperate I was to watch this series is really weird. Knowing how badly I wanted this show to be part of my life, and especially now knowing how big of a part of my life it has actually become over the last 10 years. When I found a way to watch it, I was hooked. I related to the nerdy little kids because they were me. I related to the teens because that was an era of my life I was creeping towards. I could already tell that Stranger Things was more than just a show where a boy goes missing, a girl has superpowers, and they fight big scary monsters. It was clear to see that this was a time capsule, not just to the 80s, but to childhood. My childhood. I felt seen, understood, and that's when it all started. My love for this show, my deep connection to these characters, and more importantly, the beginning of the next 10 years of my life. Season 2 came along when everyone already started to know what Stranger Things was. Everyone at school was tuning in for the new season and discussing what was going on. This for me is when I realized what kind of effect this show was going to have on people. The stories of childhood, of loss, grief, friendship, unexpected bonds, all of it. And it was the first time I was counting down the days until a new season of a show, because that's how excited I was for it. I was completely obsessed. Season 3 came out at the peak of my childhood. I remember watching the first few episodes with my best friend and my then girlfriend. The vibes of the summer in the 80s really shaped that whole year for me. It was all we could talk about for the next few months. It was a real big change seasonally from seasons 1 and 2, and in the best possible way. I bought the board shorts Billy wears to the pool. I bought Steve Scoops Ahoy uniform. I listened to the music from the show. I bought merch. I basically did everything I could to fulfill my love for this show. I think this was truly the season where I felt like this was one of my favorite shows I had ever seen. Season 3 remains my most nostalgic season and one of my favorite seasons to this day, simply due to the period that it was released. I was nearly finishing high school, so I was clinging on to my childhood. And at this point, this show had become my childhood. But while season 3 came to me in one of the best periods of my life, the next season would be the complete opposite. Season 4 released 3 years later in 2022, which to this day was probably the worst year of my life so far. I didn't have a lot going for me this year. I didn't have a lot to look forward to or to keep me happy. But one constant in my life was this show. I planned my days around making sure I was sat in front of the TV, remote in hand, the second the episodes dropped on Netflix. Before the season even came out, I had a Funko Pop for the whole party. I had just about every frame of every trailer saved onto my phone. This was my whole personality for this time. And for good reason. Season 4 tackled grief in many ways. Primarily Max dealing with Billy's death from the season prior. She was quiet, reserved, and hardly spoke about her feelings, and that was her downfall. That's what made Vecna be able to prey on her. Bottling up emotions, shutting out friends and loved ones was what really put her in the most danger. And frankly, that's exactly what I had been doing that year. When I say this season came to me at the absolute perfect time is an understatement. I needed this show again. It moved past a love and obsession to an outlet. One that could explain my fears and my secrets and my pain without me even realizing. Unironically, this season was what pushed me to finally start therapy, one of the best decisions I could have made during that time. No, I wasn't afraid of some interdimensional monster coming to get me if I shut out all of my friends. But I was afraid of having my life be overcome by emotions I couldn't understand. Season 4 took me out of the darkest point in my life. And well, the Chrissy wake up trend probably put me back into that, but we won't talk about that in this video. I felt Max's fear of being alone, Elle's fear of not being understood, Steve's fear of not knowing what his future holds, Lucas's fear of losing someone you love, and Will's fear of struggling to find a place to fit in. Besides the big action set pieces, the nostalgic needle drops, I don't know if I would have gotten out of such a dark place without the help of the messages and characters of this season. Stranger Things 5 was a weird one for me to feel excited for. Don't get me wrong, I was more excited for this season than I probably have been for anything ever, but the thought stuck with me in the back of my mind that this would be the last time I was excited for a new Stranger Things season. And that was a very weird feeling for me. Despite the big gaps between seasons, one constant I've always had in my life was the excitement leading up to the release of a new season of Stranger Things. I woke up bright and early 3 times, one for each part of the season, all for a 9 AM release. I planned my Boxing Day and my New Year's Day around being able to be there for those episodes, because despite the fear of the show ending, and frankly the fear of Steve dying, I was so excited to see the party unite one final time. And I wasn't disappointed. I know a lot of people were upset with the substance this season gave us, but I really enjoyed it all. I've watched the full season twice by the point of writing this video, and I enjoyed it just as much as I do rewatching seasons 1 to 4. The reason I've titled this segment Season 5 Part 1 is because I wanted to spend as much time as possible talking about the 55-minute epilogue sequence at the end of the final episode, because it really does deserve its own segment. You should have seen my face when this epilogue started. They defeated Vecna and the Mind Flayer, they destroyed the Upside Down. I thought this episode would be over, but no. 55 minutes left, and these 55 minutes destroyed me. We see the party long after their final battle. Joyce and Hopper get their date, the teens reunite in Hawkins, and the kids are graduating. There is just so much to unpack. Joyce and Hopper finally go on a date at Enzo's, get engaged, and discuss moving out of Hawkins. Lucas and Max finally get their movie date. Steve's a baseball coach and a sex ed teacher. Robin is still rockin' Robin. Jonathan is in film school, and Nancy left college to explore the real world outside of Hawkins. Will goes off to college and finally finds a place where he can feel safe and accepted. Dustin goes off to college and studies in libraries, further expanding his already vast knowledge. And Mike's story ends a little differently. He lost Elle, but he believes she's still out there, living the happy life she deserves. Mike stays and writes stories, telling the world about the journey he and his friends have been on together. After everything the gang has been through, they're all content with where their lives have led them. The teens share a scene together, talking about their current lives, reminiscing on the past, and agreeing to catch up once every month, no matter how crazy life gets. And Mike, Lucas, Dustin, Will, and Max share one last D&D campaign before they all head their separate ways. As they're called up to dinner by Karen, they say goodbye to their childhood. They put their D&D binders on the shelf and, through tears, head upstairs. But just before they fully say goodbye, Holly, Derek, and their friends rush past Mike and start playing D&D for themselves. He watches on as this new group of kids begin their childhood, the same way he had. He remembers the times where he and all of his friends would sit and play D&D in that exact spot. He heads upstairs and shuts the door behind him, saying goodbye to the basement where this whole journey started, saying goodbye to the game that brought him and his friends closer together, and saying goodbye to his childhood and the journey he's been on once and for all. The ending of this show isn't just sad because the story has ended. It's sad because the story ends, but life keeps moving. People grow, change, move away, inside jokes stop getting referenced, old traditions fade out, someone gets a job, someone gets tired, someone becomes a parent, and somebody becomes a stranger. And that's the part that hurts the most. The big battle can always be won, and then the sun will still rise the next day, because that's what a good ending to a story does. It doesn't tie everything up with a bow. It lets the characters walk back into an ordinary life, one that we no longer get to follow. Because in life, the big moment happens, and it passes, but no matter what, you still have to become a normal person again. The ending of Stranger Things, in my eyes, was perfect. I've never seen an ending to a show that encapsulates what it means to say goodbye to your childhood better than this one. The kids all putting their D&D binders away and Mike watching the next generation of kids play absolutely destroyed me. Life isn't just you're a kid and then you're an adult. There is so much grief that comes with that transition, and it's truly one of the hardest events you have to go through. Going from hanging out with your best friends nearly every day to not seeing them as often, if at all. Losing the people you love due to the passing of time is something you just can't avoid. And the ending of Stranger Things conveyed that in such a meaningful, impactful, and realistic way. I was 13 years old when Stranger Things started, and I'm 23 now. So I quite literally aged as the characters did, and that makes this ending hit so much harder. I've learned a lot from these characters and their stories. Elle taught me to be brave, even when I feel different. Will taught me resilience and staying true to myself. Dustin taught me kindness, Mike to lead with my heart, Max to open up after pain, Lucas to be honest even when it's hard, Robin to be our authentic selves, Nancy to have courage and to fight for the truth, Jonathan the importance of family, Steve the importance of growth and how taking accountability really matters, Hopper to love, to sacrifice and to protect those we care about, and Joyce to never give up on those people we love. To be a Stranger Things fan has evolved over time. It was seen as normal, then cringe, then somewhat normal again. But I never stopped, because I can't think of a show that's understood me more. It saw me when I was at my highest. It saw me when I was at my lowest. It understood my pain, my fears, my insecurities. It made me feel like I was a part of that friend group, a part of the adventure, a part of the party. It defined a time in my life that I will never forget. From the moment little 13-year-old me watched that first episode, he knew it would be one of his favorites, and one of the most special and important shows to him that he would ever watch. Growing up is the hardest thing in the world, but luckily for me, growing up with Stranger Things made that a little bit easier. And that, amongst everything else I've talked about today, and will for the rest of my life, is what Stranger Things means to me.
Oh, you can beat them.